Close your eyes for a second. Imagine you aren't just sitting in a room. Imagine every single object around you. The chair you're sitting on, the cup of coffee on your desk, even the breeze coming through the window is alive. Not alive like a person, but possessing a tiny, flickering spark of the divine. In Japan, they call this Yao Yorozu no Kami, the 8 million gods. It sounds like a fantasy novel, doesn't it? But what if this ancient way of seeing the world is actually the secret to surviving the soul-crushing pace of 2026? What if happiness isn't something you achieve, but something you notice in the 8 million things already surrounding you? Hello everyone, and welcome back to the show. Today, we are exploring a book that feels like a deep, cleansing breath of mountain air. It's called 8 Million Ways to Happiness, Wisdom from the Heart of Japan by Hiroko Yoda. Now, you might have heard of Ikigai or the KonMari method of tidying up. Those are great, but Hiroko Yoda takes us much deeper. She takes us past the gift shop version of Japanese culture and into the spiritual engine room, the rituals, the mountain mysticism, and the quiet resilience that helps a nation handle both natural disasters and modern burnout. By the end of this episode, we're going to understand why the Japanese don't see a conflict between high-tech cities and ancient spirits. We're going to talk about the concept of kegare, or spiritual fatigue, and why cleaning might be the most important meditation you ever do. Most importantly, we're going to look at Hiroko's personal journey through grief and how these 8 million ways helped her find light when everything felt dark. Whether you're feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or just a little bit curious about the world, there is a piece of wisdom in here for you. Let's start with that number, 8 million. In Japanese culture, 8 million doesn't literally mean you can count them all. It's a poetic way of saying infinite. It represents the idea that the divine is everywhere. This is the heart of Shinto, Japan's indigenous spirituality. Unlike many Western religions, there isn't one single, distant god sitting on a throne. Instead, the sacred is horizontal. It's in the waterfall, it's in the old tree in your backyard, and yes, it's even in the tools you use for work. Think about how we usually treat our things. We buy a phone, we use it, we drop it, we get frustrated when the battery dies, and we throw it away the moment a newer model comes out. But Hiroko describes a different way of living. If you believe your tools have a spirit, you treat them with a certain kinship. You don't just use a bowl, you cooperate with it. This might sound like a small shift, but it changes everything. It turns a chore into a ceremony. It moves us from a world of consumption to a world of connection. Hiroko writes about this not as a scholar, but as someone who had to live it. She faced profound personal loss, and she found that abstract philosophy wasn't enough to pull her through. She needed something physical. She needed shugendo. This is a fascinating part of the book where she dives into mountain asceticism. Imagine climbing steep sacred peaks, standing under freezing waterfalls, and pushing your body to its absolute limit. Why would anyone do that? Because sometimes, to find peace in your mind, you have to move your feet. You have to reconnect with the earth in a way that is raw and undeniable. Before we go deeper into the secrets of the mountain mystics and the surprising power of ritual cleaning, let's take a quick break. If you're enjoying this deep dive into Japanese wisdom, I'd love for you to be a part of our community. Hit that subscribe button on whatever platform you're using right now. And if you have a moment, leave us a 5-star review. It really helps the algorithm show this show to other people who might need a little bit of 8 million ways to happiness in their lives today. It's the best way to support the show, and I truly appreciate it. Now, back to the wisdom of Hiroko Yoda. One of the most powerful concepts she introduces is kegare. In English, we often translate this as impurity or uncleanness, but that's not quite right. In Japanese context, kegare literally means the withering of the spirit. Think about how you feel after a long week of Zoom calls, bad news on social media, and zero time in nature. Your spirit feels thin, right? It feels withered. You haven't sinned in the traditional sense, you've just lost your glow. The Japanese solution to this isn't a complex theological debate, it's harai, purification. And this is where it gets practical for us. Have you ever noticed how a Shinto shrine always has a water basin at the entrance? You wash your hands, you rinse your mouth. It's a physical reset. Hiroko argues that we can do this in our daily lives. When you wash your dishes, you aren't just getting rid of food scraps, you are clearing the withered spirit from your home. When you take a shower at the end of a hard day, you are literally washing away the stress of the world. It's about being intentional. It's about turning the mundane into the medicinal. But it's not all about quiet contemplation. There is a wildness to this happiness too. Hiroko takes us to the matsuri, the Japanese festivals. If you've ever seen a video of a Japanese festival, it's loud, it's crowded, and it's often very energetic. People are carrying heavy portable shrines, chanting and sweating. It's a divine party. This tells us something vital. Happiness isn't always calm. Sometimes happiness is a collective explosion of energy. It's about losing your individual ego in a sea of people and realizing you are part of something much, much bigger than yourself. In the book, she talks about climbing sacred mountains like Mount Omina. This isn't your typical Sunday hike. This is a journey into the other world. The monks there, the Yamabushi, believe that by entering the mountains, you are entering a space of death and rebirth. When you come back down, you are a new person. Hiroko describes the physical pain of the climb, the fear of the heights, and then the silence. That silence is where the 8 million ways start to make sense. When the noise of your own ego is silenced by the vastness of the mountains, you start to hear the voices of the world again. You start to realize you aren't an island, you are part of an ecosystem. This is a recurring theme in the book, kinship with nature. In the West, we often talk about protecting the environment, which is a noble goal, but it still implies that the environment is over there, separate from us. In Hiroko's world, we are the environment. The water in the river is the same water in your blood. The air in the forest is the same air in your lungs. When we harm nature, we are quite literally withering ourselves. I want to pause here and talk about the flexibility of Japanese spirituality. This is something that often confuses outsiders. A person in Japan might go to a Shinto shrine for a birth, have a Christian-style wedding because it looks beautiful, and then have a Buddhist funeral. To some, this looks inconsistent, but to Hiroko, it's a strength. It's a flexible approach to the divine. It's about using whatever tool works for the moment. It's about finding the way that fits your specific grief or your specific joy. There isn't one road to happiness. There are 8 million. This brings us to a concept that might be the most valuable tool for our modern, hyper-connected lives in 2026. It's the idea of ma. In Western culture, we tend to focus on the things, the notes in a song, the furniture in a room, the tasks on a to-do list. But in Japan, ma is the space between those things. It's the silence between the notes that makes the music beautiful. It's the empty space in a room that makes it livable. Hiroko explains that we have lost our ma. Our calendars are packed, our screens are full of pixels, and our minds are crowded with opinions. We are terrified of empty space. But ma is where the spirit breathes. Think about the last time you sat for 5 minutes without checking your phone or listening to a podcast. Yes, even this one. That discomfort you feel? That's the lack of ma. Hiroko suggests that finding happiness isn't about adding more stuff to our lives. It's about creating more space. It's about realizing that the pause is just as important as the action. She shares a story about a traditional Japanese garden. These gardens aren't meant to be used in the way we use a backyard for a barbecue. They're meant to be looked at. They are landscapes for the mind. When you look at a Zen garden, you see rocks and raked gravel. The gravel represents the ocean, and the rocks represent islands. But the most important part is the emptiness of the gravel. It invites your mind to rest. It gives your withered spirit a place to sit down and recover. Now let's talk about something a bit more personal. Hiroko is very honest in the book about her own journey through grief. When she lost someone close to her, the world didn't just feel sad, it felt empty. And not the good ma kind of empty, it felt hollow.
She found that the 8 million ways weren't just about pretty trees and waterfalls, they were about the ancestors. In many modern societies, we treat death like an end, a wall. But in the heart of Japan, it's more like a door. During the festival of Obon, it is believed that the spirits of the ancestors return to visit the living. People light lanterns to guide them home. They clean the graves. They offer food. To an outsider, this might seem like superstition, but Hiroko shows us the psychological genius of it. By talking to the dead, by caring for their memory through physical rituals, we keep our connection to them alive. We realize that we are just one link in a massive, ancient chain. We aren't floating alone in the universe. We are supported by the 8 million who came before us. This realization is a massive pillar of resilience. When you feel like you can't go on, you remember that your ancestors survived wars, famines, and heartbreaks so that you could be here today. You carry their strength in your DNA. Before we move into the practical happiness habits you can start tonight, let's take one last moment for ourselves. If this conversation is sparking something in you, maybe a memory or a new perspective, I'd love to hear about it. Share this episode with a friend who's been feeling a bit withered lately. Word of mouth is the most powerful way for this show to grow, and it's how we keep the 8 million conversations going. Thank you for being such an active part of this community. Now, how do we actually live this? Hiroko doesn't leave us with just theories, she gives us wisdom from the heart. One of the simplest practices she mentions is otomo, the act of making small offerings. You don't need a fancy altar. It can be as simple as placing a fresh glass of water on a shelf or acknowledging the sun when it hits your face in the morning. This is the practice of gratitude, but with a physical component. It's a way of saying to the universe, I see you, I appreciate this life. She also talks about the power of seasonal living. In our modern world, we have strawberries in January and air conditioning that keeps us at exactly 22 degrees all year round. We've flattened the seasons. But Hiroko argues that by ignoring the seasons, we lose our rhythm. In Japan, there aren't just 4 seasons, there are 24 micro-seasons, each with its own specific name, flower, and feeling. By paying attention to the first buds of spring or the specific way the wind smells in late autumn, we anchor ourselves in the present moment. We stop living in the future of our goals and start living in the now of the earth. As we start to wrap up our journey through 8 million ways to happiness, I want to leave you with a thought from the book that really stuck with me. Hiroko mentions that in the West, we often view happiness as a peak we have to climb. We think, if I get that job or find that partner or lose that weight, I will be at the top of the mountain and I will be happy. But the Japanese view, the 8 million view, is that happiness is more like a river. It's always flowing around you. Sometimes the water is rough, sometimes it's calm, and sometimes it's stagnant. The goal isn't to get to the end of the river. The goal is to learn how to swim in it, to learn how to find the divine in the rough patches as much as the calm ones. So, here's your 8 million ways cheat sheet for 2026. First, acknowledge the spirit in the mundane. Your tools, your home, your clothes, treat them with kinship, not just utility. When you care for your things, you are caring for yourself. Second, watch out for kegare, the withering of your spirit. When you feel exhausted and cynical, don't just reach for your phone, reach for water. Reach for a broom, reach for nature. Purify your space to purify your mind. Third, embrace the ma. Look for the empty spaces in your day. Don't feel the need to fill every second with noise. Silence isn't empty, it's full of potential. And finally, remember that you are part of a lineage. Whether it's your biological family or your intellectual ancestors, you are not alone. There are 8 million ways to be happy because there are 8 million ways to connect with the world around you. Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. It's been a joy to walk through these Japanese mountains and shrines with you, even if it was only in our imagination. Hiroko Yoda's book is a beautiful reminder that in a world that feels increasingly digital and disconnected, the most advanced technology we have is still our own ability to find wonder in a single leaf or a shared meal. I'm so grateful for your time and your ears. If you found value in today's episode, I'd love to hear about it. Share this episode with a friend who's been feeling a bit withered lately. Word of mouth is the most powerful way for this show to grow, and it's how we keep the 8 million conversations going. Thank you for being such an active part of this community. Now, how do we actually live this? Hiroko doesn't leave us with just theories. She gives us wisdom from the heart.